Chapter 4 Sacred Tree. Priscilla ate heartily. Jessica sat at the table, staring at her immensely. Priscilla sank her teeth into a turkey leg. She chewed quickly before reaching for a helping of cooked tomato. Fried dumplings sat on the table along with whipped peaches, plump smoked sausages, berry sauce, and various fruit juices in wooden jugs. The cooks were very generous. I do thank them. This food is really good, Priscilla said through a mouthful of tomatoes. Though I do wonder about that little tail of yours. Jessica placed her elbows on the table. Something of the sort isn't very common. She placed her chin in her hands. Noelle and your mother asked the same question. I feel some things are kind of blurry. I really don't know how I got it. I just got it. I mean, is it sensitive? Yeah, it really is. People have stepped on it before, and yeah, you can feel it if you want, but just don't grab it. Maybe later I will. Jessica droned. It was so emotionless. It was hard to tell if she was serious or teasing, so Priscilla didn't say anything else in the matter. Anyway, you think Noelle will be able to save the Queen? You both better hope so for his sake and yours. Jessica's elbows rested on the table. Her chin rested on the palm of her hands. Wow, you just threatened us? The Queen wouldn't take kindly to such words, Ice Princess. Jessica pointed her finger at the vase in the center of the table. And with just the flick of her finger, she used it to lift the vase. Priscilla watched in awe at the display of the princess's power. She's using magic. Jessica's fingers clenched into a fist. Once she opened her hand, all the flowers contained inside the vase parted like fish migrating in water. She conducted the movement of all the flowers, the vase, the water. They floated on command of Jessica's fingers. They circled Priscilla as her gaze followed. Jessica placed them back onto the table with a small clunk in their respective positions. Jessica used the tip of her index finger to rub the surface of the wooden table, draped in cloth. That was as impressive as tossing a pebble into a meadow. That's only a speck of my true magic. And don't call me Ice Princess. Eyes wide with awe, Priscilla had chomped down a bite of her sausage along with a bite of her tomato. It wasn't too much longer before she finished, giving her stomach a pat of satisfaction. Wow. Priscilla let out a small hiccup. What now, Jessica? Priscilla placed her hands on the edge of the table. You don't eat like a little girl. You eat more like a barbarian. Jessica turned her nose up. You're going to scoff at everything I do? Get over yourself, Priscilla replied, waving a hand at her. A woman dressed in green and gold robes with a large matching hood stepped up to the table, bowing before Jessica. She captured both of their attentions before the princess could get another word out. Your Majesty, I come with a visitor in your wake. Another visitor? Good. Look, we have enough visitors. My mother never mentioned expecting more company. But Princess Jessica, if I may, he knows of the Queen's affliction and how to cure it. What? How does he know? Who is this individual? Jessica's voice filled with color. Because this individual is a colleague of mine. I told him everything he needs to know about the Queen's affliction. Kasha looked to Priscilla and Noelle. If you like, I can remove these brats from your presence. Between Jessica's outbursts and Kasha's searing words, Priscilla became caught between anger and surprise. But we already have Noelle, Priscilla said, but both Jessica and her servant ignored her. The servant shook her head. Her giant sleeves connected to her robe, covering her hands. Her eyes were a light green, and her hair, well, what was showing of it was short and gray, although she wasn't old. I'm not sure about a priest boy, Jessica said. Hey, he's just not some priest boy, Priscilla jumped to his defense. Then Kasha said, and we're not brats, you old hag. Old hag, Kasha hissed. Priscilla stuck her tongue out at her. Kasha cleared her throat. He would like you to grant him an audience. Only if that's fine with you, Princess. Shall I escort him in? Kasha ignored Priscilla's rude gesture. Fine, servant, let him in. Kasha. Servant is something of a vile animal not worthy to walk in the soil that humans do, but Kasha is more fitting. Look, Jessica ignored the servant mentioning her name. The only thing I care about is saving my mother from illness. The same that killed your father. Sadly, Kasha interrupted. Her face hung low, her eyes closed, and she was silent for a moment. Kasha, whoever you are, bring them in, Jessica said callously. Kasha's eyes opened as she looked at Jessica. You speak to me so coldly, just like everyone else. Kasha reciprocated. What makes you think I would ever listen to you, cold child? Priscilla's gaze snapped at Jessica. Jessica ignored everyone else's attention on her. Look, you know what my mother will do for your subordination. Your role is but a servant. Act like it, Jessica snapped. Your father, our king, never acted into your idea of rule. Neither does your mother. Priscilla nearly jumped out of her skin once Jessica raised her voice. And neither are capable of ruling anything now. You bring this miracle worker into my mother's presence, or he may leave. You shall follow his example. Make your choice. Priscilla's eyes were wide open. She looked at Jessica, then Kasha, whom now wore a cold glare. She walked away, placing her giant sleeves together in front of her silk gown. Priscilla, along with Jessica, watched her until she was out of sight. 15 minutes passed before she came back with the visitor. He stood broad and stocky. He seemed like the typical wizard or magician. He was dressed in all red and black clothing with sparkling gold lining along the seams of his robes. A collar, followed by a red and black cape, swooped down past his belt line, which carried potions in various pouches. He had long, black hair with gray streaks, stern blue eyes, a black goatee, and knee-high black boots with buckle straps. This is one of the nicest estates I've ever placed my eyes upon. The outside castle walls look just as big as the interior. This is quite the spectacle. I'm here to see Queen Celina, the man who appeared to be a wizard replied. The sight of him mesmerized Priscilla. She's not well, her affliction is grave, and I'm not sure you're going to have anything better than the priest boy. That priest boy is in the other room attempting to keep the queen healthy, Priscilla interjected, glaring at Jessica for her comment. She has that rare disease, Lane. I'm trying to think of what it's called, Kasha asked. Itala flu. My father passed from the same disease, and the last thing I need is my own mother to pass from the same illness. The Itala flu. Excuse my manners, my name is Lane, and I'm with, a group of travelers, an apothecary by trade. We study in the subjects of magic, science, and history. And he taken a bow before Priscilla and Jessica. Well, nice to meet you, Lane. I'm Princess Jessica, and this is Priscilla Ardella. She cut Jessica off. What do you know about curing the queen or whatever it is that's ailing her? Well, I, along with my fellow journeymen, traversed through several lands. We've been in the core of discoveries for years. Many of the civilizations upon generations of old. The Itala flu hasn't been around since hundreds of years ago. Fortunately for us, it's not very contagious either. The likelihood of your mother contracting the illness from your father is highly unlikely. Lane stroked his goatee. Priscilla folded her arms as did Jessica. So, what do you suppose we do? Well then, let me see the young queen, Lane replied. They all moved towards the queen's chambers. Priscilla abandoned the remaining food on the table and was stuffed from only intense eating. Several cooks and servants quickly moved in on the table, ridding it of dishes and food. She wobbled, feeling the weight of the food settle in her stomach. They all walked through the door to see Noelle's face buried in a spell book. I have a question, then. Without looking at Priscilla, she replied, What is it you ask? Couldn't you just perform the magic on your mother? You know, you say some healing spell to make her better. What makes you think I didn't try that already? Jessica snapped. Priscilla held her tiny hands up in surrender. Okay, relax and just ask the question. Priscilla replied. Then don't ask stupid questions. And don't always assume that I know what you were talking about. My question wasn't stupid. Noel's attention rose from the book he was reading. He sat on the bed next to the queen. Oh, girls, you're back with more people. Noel, what's the question? What's the queen's health looking like? Priscilla asked. Is her mother still okay? Are you Noel, the boy from the priest's sanctuary? Your father's name Lenin, I believe. Is that correct? Kasha asked. She was asleep to rub her forehead. Noel scratched his forehead. Yeah, that's me all right, Noel said with a smile. But to answer your question, she doesn't seem to be showing any signs of further illness or symptoms. She just drifted off to sleep. Her breathing has been pretty steady. So the priest has sent a boy. That's rather strange, especially considering the gravity of the situation, Lane said. They entrusted me with the healing of the queen, and now here I am, Noel replied, flipping pages intently through the thick spelled book, Lenin's Guide to Curative Magics. I don't see why they didn't just come out themselves, Lane replied. Exactly what I said, Jessica agreed. Priscilla jumped to Noel's defense. Hey, enough already. Noel's in practice, so deal with it. That goes for everyone, including you, Ice Princess. I said not to call me that, Jessica yelled. Shh, try to keep it down. The queen is sleeping peacefully, gently, gracefully, Noel said. He placed his finger on his lips. You're going to go through every adjective to describe my mother sleeping. You don't have to hold our hands for 5. We get it, Jessica said much quietly. Lane began to walk to her bedside. He stood near Noel. In healing the queen, what did you have in mind? Kasha asked Lane. She stepped right in behind him. Oh, right. Any of you heard of the sacred tree? Suddenly the entire room turned eyes on him. Other than the boiling sound of herbs in a pot, no one spoke except the silence. No one, huh? I'm surprised. Well, it's a tree that secretes a sap that gives out incredible healing properties, but the sap is also said to give the user eternal life. I think I've heard of such, Jessica replied. Lane's gaze traveled to the princess. Priscilla exclaimed, We could use it to save the queen. But she'll be given immortality, Noel shot down her suggestion. The flowers surrounding the tree only have healing properties. They heal any and every disease known to man, Jessica replied. Wait, so both of you know about the tree. How come no one thought of this first? Noah asked. Lad, it's not as simple as it may seem. We have to search for a place, a garden called Eden, once inhabited by the Itla people. They were the only ones deemed pure enough to enter. A giant flaming blade blocks the way inside for the unholy. Wait, so do any of the Itla people exist? Maybe they can help us, Noel asked. Save all your breaths, Jessica interrupted. That's not going to work. None of the Itla people survived. That was over a century ago. I'm almost certain it's still here. Really, I saw the garden with these 2 good old eyes of mine, Lane replied. I mean, it's worth a shot then, Noel said. We'll grab some of those flowers. Kasha looked to everyone, then over at the queen as she slept. No, Eden doesn't exist. The sacred tree doesn't exist. It's all a fairy tale. You can't prove such a thing exists. It's a story some bard made up, and a stupid children's tale at that, Jessica replied. Shh, Jess, you gotta keep it down, Noah exclaimed quietly. The funny thing is, I saw it. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. But anyone not of the Itla tribe attempts to pass Eden, and the flames of the blade will cook your flesh to bones, Lane replied. No, Lane's not lying, Priscilla said. Eden really does exist. Priscilla became the next center of attention in the room. How do you know, Pris? Noel asked. Because I'm trying to travel there myself. I have some business there, she said. I've traversed there once, a long time ago. We knew not to get too close. We saw it all from a far, far distance. I can't remember where other than it was somewhere in the hills. I believe it was north of here, Lane replied. Lane opened his suede formal jacket and pulled out a decent-sized round object. His hands were large enough to keep hold. What is that? Priscilla pointed at the round device of arrows that pointed from here to there. Yeah, I don't think I've seen such a trinket, Noel chimed in. It's known as a compass. This one, however, has the capability of enhancing searches just by dabbing magic onto it, Lane replied. He pointed his finger at the compass dial arrows. Nothing happened. He laughed, placing his hand on his forehead. How could I activate such feats if only I knew magic? Jessica stirred. She held out her hand to the compass, munching with her fingers. Here, let me see that worn trinket. Hey, I detest the worn trinket, you little tyke. Insinuating that I'm old? I'm a magic user. Jessica snatched the compass from Lane's hands. He had the urge to stop her, keep it away from her reach, but she was too fast for him. Instead, he watched intently as she stared at it. How does this work? Jessica asked. You just sprinkle a dab of magic on the surface. Not too much, but just a dab of magic. She listened to him. Suddenly, loud noises echoed throughout the room. This is definitely going to wake Queen Celina, Noelle said, watching the crackling, swishing sound of sparks flying. The audience in the room stood in awe as the compass emitted a large image of the globe. An image hovered over its old-used frame. This will point you in the right direction. I don't know the way of memory alone, but this is the trinket that will show you the way. Maybe your memory doesn't work because Noelle started to say. Lane gave him an evil glare, making him tiptoe around his last and final word of his sentence. Jessica folded her arms. It's useless that we'll find something that's related to a fairy tale. Priscilla, an old man? I doubt that it'll work. Don't call me old, you baby you. You're still in doubt. I'm telling you it exists. Since you know the magic, Princess, this device will come in handy. Priscilla stepped up asking, so we have to try it. Is there a price you want for it? Lane tossed the compass to Priscilla as she caught it in her small hands. Consider it a gift, young lass. A compliment on your safe travels. There's not going to be a safe travels because this is all ridiculous. You don't expect us to find some tree and risk my mother wasting away, do you? Kasha was still silent. Or you could sit here and hope these remedies do the trick, but in the case of a disease this rare, it's hard to tell, Princess. You know it is, seeing as you are a smart young lady. As Lane said that, Priscilla chimed in. No, we have to find that tree, Lane. Lane has seen the world. He knows what it does and doesn't exist. We have to find that medicine. Only eating can we find the cure and heal Queen Celina.